coronation this bank holiday.
How will we be selling the coronation? How about you, Sheila? What are you doing?
I'm going to a street party with my daughter, son-in-law, and their family. So that should be quite exciting to get everybody together for the coronation.
With your family.
More or less the same as it was in 1953, I think, with Queen Elizabeth. So we like to keep things sort of traditional around here. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing.
Well, what about you then, Fenella?
Well, I was hoping that it was last week and I had been ill and missed it, but I'm not. I celebrated I really love the old Queen, and remember her coronation. I was there. Not there, but I mean, I celebrated that, and I'm not anti-monarchy, but I'm not really as enthusiastic about.
You're not engaged with it.
No, I mean, I'll watch it as a pageant, and we do that very well. But I mean, I'm not going to any street parties, or in fact, no, I'm not doing anything very much.
I'm flying out from Bristol Airport tomorrow to Aberdeen, and I'm staying in Banchory, the Banchory Lodge Hotel, and I'm seeing an old friend up there who I saw back in February. And apparently we're going to a do with coronation chicken and prosecco, which sounds about right for my mate Barbara. And we'll also pay a little visit up to Balmoral. And Sheila's disappeared. Sheila, come back.
I have.
Just press the button.
Can.
Oh.
Gosh. Well, we'll carry on, and you join us when you're.
Yeah. If we can have the next question. What is the next? Yeah. Family memories of Elizabeth II's coronation. I remember going down. I mean, Bristol City Centre was absolutely packed, and I remember this huge crown in the middle, and I remember also there was some kind of magic clock supposedly in Queen Square. I remember sitting on my dad's shoulder, and I thought the clock was rubbish. That wasn't magical. It wasn't very special at all to me. I liked the crown. You could walk underneath. It was really good. It was there for quite a while. But and I vaguely remember the street parties because I think, as you girls would know, the sweets had come off ration, and suddenly we had a yearning for sweet things. I think after the war years, when sugar was so difficult to get hold of, and so that's my particular family memory, and I was 4 years old, but I do remember it.
I remember that.
Yeah, and the kids older than me, the girls dressed up in red, white, and blue crepe dresses made from crepe paper. I mean, must have been a huge run on them at the time, and I was so envious. I really wanted a dress like that, but I was considered too young. I must put out.
I was a twinkle in my dad's eye, I think, because I wasn't born then.
But,
because everybody did have street parties in those days, and the younger children, the younger girls were one was chosen to be the queen of the street, and my granddad crowned the queen on the small stage they had in the street. So it looked like it was really fun. But and the rationing had just ended, or was almost ended. So we were able to make more things.
The great delicacies, Sheila, fish paste sandwiches.
Wow.
Blancmange, and spam, because the Americans left a lot of tins of spam behind.
Yeah.
It was useful. But I think the whole point is about the street parties then was there were much more, because there were more communities then, and it was also a case things were still in short supply, and everybody was just offering what they could towards the big event.
Yeah,
So they were sharing a lot more, I think.
And there were no rules and regulations. You didn't have to get police permission to do it. If you wanted to do it, you closed the street off and you did it.
And
That's
that
right.
was
You
it,
have to apply to the council there.
Yes.
And I think
they've got to have licenses and everything these days, haven't they?
And the health and safety.
Health and safety.
I mean, I'm the oldest of the three of you, so I bought I've still got my tin of toffees. I was on the day. We all got a tin of toffees, and
have you still got the toffees in them, Fenella?
No, I haven't.
They were chocolate ones, weren't they, Fenella? Yeah.
And that was me. Can you see it? Me. That was me. There was on the council estate where my father had a stepmother lived. They had a sort of like a party. I don't remember any food, but I lived about 2 miles away with my mother and stepfather, and my stepfather it was a decorated pram competition and a fancy dress. So I was in a sari and pushing this pram which had red, white and blue paper thing. And I was just saying, I had to walk 2 miles, I think it was, from one house to the other at 7 on my own. But we used to do it all the time, and you didn't. You know, it was a much safer world back then.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't remember anything to do with the Queen particularly. Just that I had a tin of toffees and dressed up.
And here's a flag. And
But
I remember. Go on.
My husband, who was nearly 13 years older than me, and he obviously was a young man, and he had the most wonderful time in London. He went up there not because he was particularly mad about the Queen, but they went up for a party, had a wonderful weekend. And then things whilst I was having jelly and blancmange and things. He was having whatever. So it was a fantastic occasion. For young adults, a bit like I suppose VE Day or any of those other days. It was
well, I suppose, Fenella, they were looking forward to a brighter future. They'd been through the war years, and a lot of people don't realise how long rationing kept going. It kept going for such a long time.
I think I can remember, it only just finished, I think. If it had finished, I thought it was 53 it finished. I can remember wrapping books and going around and, you're allowed to be penny halfpenny for your lollipop.
And I remember the drinks. I remember, I don't know whether you do, sherbet. They used to get sherbet in that bright yellow stuff.
Oh, that's it.
And chuck it in with water. That was our lemonade, basically.
That's it. Do you remember collecting? I used to go and collect. We used to collect fizzy pop bottles and take them back to get the
I think
those were the days.
Well, where were we going next then?
It's about character, the next one.
Oh, yes.
So
go on then.
I haven't. I have very little to do with coronations in my book.
You haven't touched on
coronations in your books. I don't think mine would have. I would have done whatever, but you've actually got characters who did it. So shall I leave that one to you to answer?
Okay. Well, with Coronation Close, the new series, the first book is actually set in 1936, which was they were looking forward to a coronation, and Thelma, who's the main character, collects memorabilia. And the thing is, I've actually got one here of. She actually worships this guy. I don't know. There you are. There he is.
Seventh
who never was.
Yeah, and of course the king who never was. And actually, Thelma in the book she just smashes the mug out of disgust because he went off with his stuff. Went off with that. So that coronation never actually came out to anything. So it went into the next year to 37. And to King George VI, of course. I haven't got a mug of that. I've got one of George V. This is
right.
George.
That's a nice mug.
That's a nice.
It's collector has said, who I've known for years, he said that's a nice one. Lovely shape. It's a beautiful shape too. Long live the King, 1911.
Yeah, it would be.
Would you believe my phone is ringing?
Well, I hope your partner will turn it off.
I'm going to turn it off. I'll get there.
Right, we'll go to Sheila then.
Well, not many people had phones in those days, did they? So
no, but I mean,
there wouldn't be those interruptions. Sorry.
While she's sorting her phone out, do you want to do your characters, the most recent?
In the Mersey Mothers, I do the Queen Elizabeth II's coronation.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
And it starts the whole series. That was the finish of the series. But when the series began, there was a bit of a mystery, and one of the characters was killed, and then it actually answers the question
at the end
during the coronation of Queen Elizabeth. So yeah, that was in the Mersey Mothers. That was the third one in the Reckoners Row series. I don't think the series I'm doing now, Beamer Street, it may be around the 30s, so it will be two coronations ago.
Yeah. I found it interesting that at the time, I mean, with King Edward, the society knew what was going on, but the media were told not to tell the British public. Everybody abroad knew, Europe knew, America knew, but they were told, oh no, it would cause problems, so we don't tell the British public. So the hoi polloi had to wait, afraid, until the bishop, I think it was the Bishop of Auckland, and he did a sermon, and it was misinterpreted. They thought he was actually getting at the king. It turned out it wasn't the point of the sermon at all, but it just was like a starting pistol to the media, and the media just shot off, and out it all came. And then of course he ended up abdicating. He chose her.
Well, it's a good thing we didn't have it, because he was a Nazi.
Well, he
was a lot more than that, wasn't he? He was absolutely. He was a playboy. He could charm anyone, charm the birds from the trees. Certainly, he charmed women anyway. Yes. And I mean, all his mistresses were all married women. He'd like to play safe. But so I was interested in that when doing the research about the attitude to him. And I remember, and this is the great thing about writing nostalgia, I remember my mother saying, oh, he would have made a good king. I much preferred him. And looking back on it now, and I think she was swayed by the good looks. So just the same as a lot of other people were. But he wasn't suitable. Wasn't suitable at all.
He was very confident, wasn't he? He wasn't, but I think we got the right king in the end.
Yeah. He was, Edward was kind of, he was quite arrogant, apparently. He knew nothing.
I don't think he was interested.
He wanted everything his way. So no, he wasn't very good. And then when I did that Coronation Close, those first two, but of course before then I'd done Coronation Wives, which was 1953, and that was a sequel to Wartime Brides, and it followed the same characters. But what I was interesting then was what was going on with the coronation, but also the grimmer things of life. And I remember I interviewed this Polish guy because I was shocked when I found out that Polish refugees who'd come here from Europe, they had to have their passports stamped with alien right up to the 60s. And they had to report every week to the police station to make sure they were still in the same job, still living in the same place. And they even had to report when they married. And I was quite shocked. He told me all this. This guy, he actually ended up as a minor in Cwmbran, but he had been at university in Warsaw studying architecture. And he had joined the resistance. And he had been imprisoned by the Nazis for 6 months and ended up working for the Americans. And applied to go to America, and they said, oh no, you've got to be 5 years with us. started working for the British, they said, no, that's okay. You've been working 3 years for the Allies. Yeah, we'll give you a passport to come to Britain.
And yet there were Polish flights of Polish airmen.
Pilots, yeah. They were the biggest contingent after British and Commonwealth.
Yeah, I mean they had their own, and they were the ones that showed the way to fight properly, rather than this old-fashioned in the Vic formation.
Yeah.
As a tail end Charlie, quite often by the time they got back, two of the back had been knocked off by the Messerschmitt. So they fought in twos, and they just ignored the rules, and because they'd fought the Spanish Civil War, you see, and
they were quite ruthless. But if someone had invaded your country, so would you. So
it seems strange. I never knew that they treated other Poles so badly, because the Polish airmen came in, they were accepted and part of the RAF, and no problem.
Well, I don't think they treated each other badly, did they?
No, but I'm just saying I don't think the Polish airmen had to register every week.
I think they did. I don't know. They might have done. But I was talking. This guy was a refugee, so perhaps it was just the refugees.
The refugee, yeah.
Yeah, he was a refugee because Poland. The thing was, if you'd worked for the Allies and you went to Poland, back to your hometown, Stalin had taken over.
Of course,
and all those who'd worked for the Allies ended up in the gulags.
Of course, they did. Yes.
Mm.
Sad.
Yeah. There's quite a number of parallels with today, with what's going on today, I think, isn't there?
Ukraine and things.
Yeah. Especially, I think, leading up to World War II.
Yeah.
You know, the parallels are quite striking, really.
All the parallels today are quite striking, yes.
Yeah.
Should we go on to another question?
The next question I think we've just answered, but you'll see when it comes up, because it was asking you about your...
Oh, yeah.
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
I think we are.
How in total do you think the King and Queen went? Oh, right. So obviously they were as important to the King and Queen, King, or the King as it was then, were like God. I mean, people just automatically believed in the rule of the King, and the fact that he stayed in London. He and the family stayed in London, and Buckingham Palace was actually bombed, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't evacuate. They didn't shoot off to America. He stayed and did his bit, and then Elizabeth joined the ATS and became a driver, didn't she? So I think that was really important. I mean, a really good example to the ordinary people who looked up and said, well, if they're staying then and doing their bit, then we'll.
It was good for morale, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think it was different in those days. I mean, it was king and country and God, and it was automatic, wasn't it? I mean, even if I'm sure a lot of the soldiers didn't believe in God, when it push came to shove, they all prayed to be delivered, didn't they? I mean, it's it was integral to. It's not like now. I mean, people actually believed in also. I mean, my neighbours over there, they've got all this bunting and stuff up, and we were talking, and she said, I'm not too keen on this. It should have skipped straight to William and what's her name? Catherine?
Catherine,
yeah. But she said, I suppose we've got to show willing or something. So it's a bit, like, as you were saying, the parallels are a bit, I think there are a lot of people who feel a bit, oh, well, he's all right. His heart's in the right place, which it is. He's an environmentalist, but he's not who we want, if you see what I mean. We'd like to have somebody younger, and I think if it was...
don't you think it's become a bit celebrity orientated, as though it's an almighty soap, and that isn't, and that's what people kind of looking at it. Almost as though some people talk about them as though they live next door and know them, and it's
I think
there is this I
think it was absolutely essential. I mean, it is through the book, although I don't think to be honest, I don't think the king is mentioned apart from when
the
Thursday I'm fighting for king and country. I mean, that might have been mentioned, or Majesty might have done this, but it was just, they looked up to the royal family and wouldn't have been the same. We sometimes wonder whether France would have folded quite so quickly if they'd had, a royal family there setting the example, but you don't know. So that's my thing. All right. Oh, that's your turn, Sheila.
Let's see. Yeah, the whole of Reckoners Row pulled together to have a big party, and especially it was the mothers who pulled it all together. The men drank their beer and everything.
Like the
as they did.
The women,
yeah. But the women who did the donkey work, I think, didn't they, to get everything done and collect the food and cook it, and at these, in this day and age, I think a lot of the men sort of get involved more, than they did in those days. But I think people were more accepting. I don't think they asked too many questions. They had enough going on in their own lives to worry about what was going on in say London, or that anything out of their own area really was.
Well, there was it was the only news came through. I mean, television was closed down during the war anyway.
That's right, yeah.
But you just had the radio and the media quite often, as Lizzie was saying, only gave them a very sort of fragmented view.
They were restricted.
Yeah. So you weren't, and anything, you weren't allowed to sort of say anything that was anti the war or anti,
No, there's a lot more freedom of speech these days, which is a good thing, but
it is. But when you think back,
there used to be D notices.
But you could now, something would happen in Liverpool. It might be, somebody in Colchester wouldn't know anything about it. Well, now something happened in Liverpool,
everybody know immediately.
Knows immediately, and I think that is the difference now. And I think the mystique and the majesty, if you like, of the royal family and the coronation has sort of slipped a bit. But with the Queen's funeral, if you think, and her jubilee, I think that showed that inherently.
I think there's still, a huge
affection for, as my niece said, she's not particularly bothered about, but she likes the pomp and ceremony, so she'll watch the coronation. She's not going to any street parties, but she'll watch it because we do that sort of thing so well.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, would you do like head of state, King Charles, or King Boris?
Yes. Well, that's the problem, isn't it?
Or Queen Liz Truss,
Oh my goodness!
I think having a figurehead is sometimes preferable.
I do like the idea of the pomp and the ceremony and the circumstance. I love all of that. I think the fact that the royal family are there gives us something to be proud of, even though they don't always do things that make us proud.
No. Camilla lives not far from me, only 18 miles along the road in Laycock.
Oh, tell her I said hello.
Family home, Laycock.
Gosh, yeah.
But I mean, it is. But the thing is, I suppose we can't then know they're as far removed from us as people like.
Of course they are, yeah.
Sunak, who's like a billionaire, isn't he? I mean, he's as much in touch with us as the royal family, really. So I suppose people want someone.
People of power, Fenella.
Yeah,
people of power. They don't live ordinary lives, and you have to kind of accept that.
I think it is acceptable when it's the royal family because they are born into it. I don't agree with it necessarily, but they're born into it. I mean, like the Queen worked so hard all her life, always before before family.
Yeah.
And even people like my brother, who's he's a anti-royalist, really. He had a great affection for her, and and respected her. So
yeah, I think because she there was the continuity, wasn't there, with the Queen?
Yeah, from the time of empire to the time when it changed to Commonwealth. I think with Charles, I think he is going to alter it, and he recognises the need for it to be altered, for something to change. I mean, all the hangers-on who, like, you never see doing any presentation or anything at all. So why should they have these grace and favour apartments for nothing? Why? There's no point in that. What's next?
It's Lizzie and Sheila now.
Emotional journeys. Oh,
wow. I know my characters, as everybody, every saga writers characters do go through the whole arc of emotions, from on the day they would have been thrilled that they were having a party. They would have been thrilled that they were part of this big historical moment. And yet there was so much more going on behind the scenes, I think. So, yeah, my characters, I put them through the mill a little bit,
I think in the Coronation Close novels specifically, because the Coronation Wives is 1953, and they were getting used to a world after the war, and things were not quite all as perfect as some people made out. And there, one particular character is horrified when her child contracts polio, because you will all remember of our age that was the horror, a big horror before actual inoculations really came into being, which were at first it was injections, and then later on it was the sugar level with it. Yeah, but way back then, it was called the summer sickness. And I mean, we've all heard or seen, and I've seen pictures of the kids in the iron lung.
Yeah.
Awful thing. And they were put into hospital, and their parents were not allowed to visit them for weeks and weeks and weeks. It was a terrible thing. So that was a huge emotional journey, and something that the character really had to get over. In the other Coronation, the Coronation Close novels, I think it starts off that Thelma, who becomes a great friend to Jenny, who's moved in from the slums. She's got all these mugs on her dresser, and she's got all these plates, coronation plates, and all the rest of all that there, and she's absolutely engaged with all that. But then, of course, Edward lets her down, and she's devastated. But
takes it personally.
But it's as though she does.
Yeah,
because it's so, even though no TV, etc. at that time, but to her, with just mugs and with photos and that she cuts out of newspaper and puts pictures on the wall, to her, they were like her family. And then in the second book, I mean, the second book of the series, I mean, there will be 6 in the series altogether, but then she's really looking forward to the coronation. Her son has also come home from sea, but even then, things don't quite work out how she would have liked things. Something horrific does happen. And the other thing is, there's the start of a shadow beginning to come over the fact that perhaps there would be another war, and within the street there's someone who suffered badly in that First World War, and this also is something that affects their emotions, because they're coming from a very different angle.
Right, so the next one is me. Yes, because there are 2 weddings in the book that's coming out next month, and both of them there were big restrictions. So they were only 40 guests allowed, no cakes, cardboard cake you borrowed from the bakers, and put your Victoria sandwich underneath. And like you're saying with the street parties, the 2 of you, it was quite often the wedding breakfast was provided by everybody. The guests all bought something, so it would be kind of a mix and match of spam sandwiches, sausage rolls, cheese straws,
fish
whatever.
paste sandwiches,
whatever happened to be available. So I've read of occasions where somebody would ask all their friends to go to the bakers for every guest to go to the nearest baker and buy as many cakes as they were allowed to, so that on buns and things. And they had a wonderful spread. This actually was someone's autobiography. I mean, not like we'd have a buffet, because it was all sort of buns and cake. And you think during the war, obviously, to have a surplus of any sort of food was a big thing. But so that, I suppose, was similar to a coronation celebration. But I don't think it would occur to any bride, unless they were an aristocrat, to have a wedding, themed on anything to do with the royals. I mean, they were so far above them. I mean, they were lucky if they had a dress, let alone a dress planned to look like a royal bride. I mean, nowadays I remember after Diana's wedding, everybody had these long, puffy sleeved gowns. They were all the rage. But there, I mean, people just, or married in their uniform, married in a suit, made whatever they could have. There was no, so I don't think royal trends would be of any importance at all to the bride in this. I mean, they were just wanted to get married and have a special day if they could, and that was about it. And if they had a white dress, they were lucky.
Yeah, I think in those days, didn't Barbara Cartland start a thing?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, she did. Yeah. She was WRVS, wasn't she? And she used to source dresses for brides. And they used to. They could only borrow them for the event, then they had to give them back.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's sensible, because I know. I mean, somebody, they can pay £2,000 for a dress and they only wear it once. It's just silly, isn't it?
Yeah.
But no, I don't. The answer to my question is I don't think the royal family had any influence whatsoever on any bride.
No.
Yeah, they were more inclined towards parachute silk for the dress and a neck curtain on their head, or uniform.
Or uniform, or if they could get hold of a parachute, they were lucky. I mean, towards the end of the war, because they were supposed to hand their parachute in, the RAF, when they took the flying gear with them when they were posted, but their parachutes stayed at the base, because they had to be repacked and looked after by. But I mean, obviously, at the end of the war, they just took them home, and then they could use them for all sorts of things. But that was towards the end of the war. So, number 9 we're up to now.
No. That's a straight answer to that. Because the whole point is that I'm writing about working class people. I'm writing about social and economic history. And royalty didn't have any part to play in that whatsoever. And I wouldn't, if I was writing anything about a monarch, it wouldn't even be set in the same time. I would go way back into history.
I think I've got a couple of scenes where the Princess Royal or somebody, I can't remember who it was, somebody was actually visited some WAFs. And so, I mean, so she came, and another one where I think it was the Dutch king or some other king who was had come to hide in Britain. He came, flew himself in to see an RAF base, but not. They were just posh folk who visited. Nobody took a lot. It wasn't a big deal.
No, they didn't integrate. So.
No, I mean they were the same as any bigwig who, above their pay grade, really.
Yeah. You'd have to go way back to have a favourite monarch feature, wouldn't you? Really?
Yeah. The only one I've got is when the Mersey Tunnel was opened. The King and Queen.
Yeah. You visited. Have the visited. Yeah, you have the, and they did do their bit, and they went to. Not the King. I don't think the King ever went to visit any base, but I mean certainly the Queen did.
Yeah.
But only very brief. You can't put them in too much. You might be breaking libel laws or something.
I don't think you could give them a full plot line.
No, not really. No.
And then we've got the last one we're up to now. All right, what about Lizzie?
Well, that's Thelma. Thelma is she's the kind of queen of the street, really. She kind of she's kind of like she's got a bit about her, as we would say. She's got that dominating kind of attitude, and she goes around to people in the street, and she's not afraid of speaking out if she feels there's a need to.
Well, I think she'd be more the Prime Minister than the Queen.
Do you? Of course you do. Awesome.
The Queen don't. What do they say? The royal family don't complain. Don't
explain. Don't complain.
So in fact, Thelma would be the absolute antithesis of a royal member, because she tells you what she thinks, and she sorts it.
But I'm thinking Boudica. She'd be more like Boudica.
If you go back in the day.
I like going way back when it comes to royalty. Yeah. Well, queens and kings and
Yeah, I mean back in the day.
Like there was, But watch out for the knives on the chariot wheels.
Absolutely. What about you, Sheila? Have you got somebody who would?
Not really. I can't think of anyone offhand who would take on the role of, of royalty or
Wouldn't you have what was her who worked in the office? She was a bit of a cow. She could shoot off with their heads.
Yes, she did think she was something else, didn't she? Yeah, I've forgotten about Susie. But yeah, she would have pushed herself forward to be. I'm thrilled to bits to actually be named in the same sentence as royalty, but that was just in her own mind.
Joanna, who had been of all of you, because was married to an aristocrat. I mean, she was only the daughter of a bank manager. She wasn't anybody special herself, but was a lady because her husband was a lord. So, I mean, I'm quite sure she would have stepped into the role quite readily, dispensed her wisdom and largesse to everybody without getting too involved. Yes, I think she would have handled it very well. So that's about it now. Unless anybody else has
Unless we've got any questions.
Yeah, so we've got a few minutes left. Oh, there's a question.
Oops.
Oh.
No, they didn't. I remember actually that one Aggie Hill, she was a neighbour of ours, and she had a TV set. I mean, you bear in mind the screen would have been smaller.
Yeah.
They were tiny, and she must have. I don't know how many people she had in her living room, but they must have been wall to wall, like which would be said for the carpet. But there were very few, and TV had only just come back in because it was suspended during the war. And then was only available in London, but it had actually been extended after the war. But I think the sets were rented. I think.
I don't think anybody would be able to afford one.
We used to rent. But the thing is, it wasn't even a very pleasant screen. It was very crackly screen. No, I didn't even see it. I had not seen a television until I was in my teens.
Yeah. And then there was a fair chance you might have to stand outside with the aerial or something and wiggle it out and and it was very funny. Although yours.
Excuse me.
Okay.
So I'm on a thing. I'll talk to you in a minute.
I remember afterwards the cinema, because at the cinema it was put on at the cinema, wasn't it, in black and white?
Yes,
I remember
the newsreel.
That's those old images we see in black and white. They are Gaumont Pathé News rather than BBC.
I know when we used to go to the cinema, you went and you had the A film and the B film, and instead of it, you got the news, the Gaumont News or the Pathé News,
and it was continuous. If you remember, it was, but the matinees rolled on and on and on. They didn't sort of stop.
So you could stay all day.
They did. Yeah, so you could sit there all day.
And do you remember the thing they used to play the national anthem?
Oh yeah.
At the end. And I can remember my brother and I used to creep off.
So a lot of people used to leg it.
Before it came on.
Oh, dear.
The respect, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Real white.
Oh yes. Yeah. You're quite right, Tracy. The question was another memory. Yeah, real white bread. Yeah. And even so, you still had to slice it, but it didn't last very long, did it? It didn't stay fresh very long.
I don't remember bread of any sort. There must have been some.
Yeah, but it was. I remember my mum cutting it, and once after like 2 days, all you could do was toast it.
It was mold
because there was no preservatives in it.
No,
there were no preservatives in it. So, and they used to make it properly. They used to do the 2 rises, the first rise and then let it settle. And then the second rise before putting it in the oven. Apparently what they do at the supermarkets now when they bake bread is they add something into it that means they haven't got to let it have a second rise. But the trouble is it keeps rising inside you. Not good.
No, I don't remember. I mean, I remember sweets being rationed. Do you remember? I remember pea soup fogs when I was living in London, and we went out.
All cities, I think, Fenella. Really thick fogs back then.
We went round.
But because, of course, we all had coal fires.
Yeah, it was because of the coal fires, and we went round the corner, literally, to the sweet shop, and then find our way with my stepdad, and he had to keep walking up people's paths and feeling the front door. And it took us about an hour to do a 5-minute walk, but we got back in the
they were really thick. Yeah,
literally thick yellow, choking, and you couldn't see where you were going.
Yeah,
the good old days again.
Bronchitis.
Yes, whooping cough.
That's it. Yeah.
So it's not all. I mean, we look back with nostalgia, and we tend to, in a way, not romanticize exactly, but people look back and think, "Oh, it must have been nice then." But
it was hard lives.
Very hard. But I do think people were more resilient. People were friendlier.
They were more resilient,
And I think people were more supportive of each other. Particularly in cities. I think. You wouldn't let a neighbour go hungry. If you had something. It doesn't happen now.
I remember my dad being unemployed, and in order to get his national assistance, as it was then, they sent him up to Durham Downs in Bristol, and he had to help put up the tents for Billy Smart Circus. Otherwise, he wouldn't get anything.
No, so you have to work for your money.
Yeah. Excuse me.
I think we've run out of time now, haven't we?
Have we indeed?
45 minutes. So,
well, okay. So, shall we wish each other a very happy coronation?
absolutely.
I should be divided because I should be partly in Scotland, but I should also be on BBC Bristol. So.
Are you doing it from?
Oh,
They've
congratulations!
done it. They've already done it.
Oh well,
yeah. And it was very good. So it's on BBC Points West. Yeah,
that's
really good.
Oh, that's posh.
Yeah. Television. Yeah, BBC television. But I should actually be in Scotland.
What about you? Where you'll just be at a street party, which would be quite exciting.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
What about
And
you,
then
Fenella?
I shall be Saturday. What will I be doing? Not writing, trying to write if my headache's gone, because I've fallen behind. And Sunday I'm going out for lunch, but Monday just a bank holiday. I mean, I can't understand why that's tacked on the end. Really, I mean, why is there a bank holiday, or why do we need an extra bank holiday? Just the king being nice to us, is it?
I suppose so. I suppose so. Yeah.
Anyway, it was very nice sitting here and talking to you.
Yeah.
Even though I only see the top of your head, Lizzie.
I know. Well, this is like I had to swap computers, like I said, because the other one it just will not support this particular program. So yeah, and I didn't have time really to get the other one set up with my monitor because I didn't